Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, please make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe. It really just let me know that you're enjoying the content. And a lot of you have done that recently. So welcome to the new guys and girls who are part of the Pommy and Oz family. You can become a step further, become a member of the channel. Link is in the description to do that. And we have got some merch, pommyandoz.com. So make sure you head over there for all your merch needs. And we were going to do this live today, but a good mate of mine has got a wonderful 30th for his missus. So shout out Like Dog and his beautiful partner. Her happy 30th to you. So we're doing this just offline so I can play a bit of FIFA. So we'll have a bit of a chat in the comments. You know I'm always there. So let's get into it and give you a recap of all the trade news from this week. So we'll start off with Finn Callaghan. And it was reported that Mr. Finn Callaghan is hotly wanted by the old St Kilda there, and we've given a baseline of, I reckon that for a guy that is contracted, you are obviously going to want probably around a first. He's a good age, isn't he? He's only 21 years old. He's played a total of 50 games, 24 games this year, 22.9 touches, which is above average. He's had some real top seasons as well, like back end of his year was really good. That 36 game disposal game against Melbourne. High tackle player, real good speed. He's really developed his clearance game, and it makes sense that St Kilda would look at him, to be honest, because it's probably easier than to draft someone, and that could be interesting. I think that they'll keep their picks. I think that's what they'll be about. I don't think that St Kilda will trade into this. If it was a future first, they may look at it though. That could be one, but it'd be interesting because GWS are always linked, aren't they, to South talent, and it never really happens. So this is going to be a really interesting one for mine, one that I'm going to keep an eye on, but I don't think this one will happen. I think this will be something that, you know, they'll probably look at towards, like, you know, the end of the year next year, if you know what I mean. I think that is one of them kind of trades that, dependent on what they do, GWS, you'll probably look at it in that avenue of, will they do it so early? He is out of contract next year, so it does make sense that if a trade happens, it would happen this year. Remember, most of the trades are always a year in advance or in the last year, so this could be one to watch next year, definitely. But for me, I think St Kilda will probably go with what they know. Jack Martin is a really interesting one. This guy could just not get himself fit. Recently delisted by Carlton. Geelong, Brisbane and Fremantle are evidently in pursuit of his signature. And this is a really interesting one for me because there's no doubt about Jack Martin's talent. This guy can play ball and he's a very, very accomplished forward, particularly from that third forward leading from the pocket. You want that third target. 29, 30 years old next year, 150 games. And he always pops up for a goal or two, and you can understand this type of acquisition from all three parties. Geelong meant to be favoured there. This doesn't worry me as a Carlton fan if he does go to Geelong. It really doesn't, because you've tried just about everything. He's always been injured, and this is where Carlton are in a situation where when they've had their injuries, we probably can't afford it, where I think he's a great role model here for Ollie Henry to really learn off, add some strings to his bow, just being in and around training. You'll probably get him on like a pay-as-you-play deal with some real good player payments. This probably will happen. Someone will pick him up in the postseason draft, so you know that's going to happen. That's like a 10 out of 10 happening. You just know that's going to happen. Up next, Joe Richards. We've got him at 40 to 50. He's been heavily linked to Port Adelaide, and this could be one of them ones where you may look at a future deal. Now, I am quite surprised by this rumour, and I'll tell you for why. I'm a big fan of Joe Richards and what he brings. I think he's got some real good pace. He's really dynamic the way he plays, and I'm surprised more clubs are in for him if there is a chance. It makes sense for Collingwood to trade him out because they have got depth in that position, per se. And it also makes sense for Collingwood because I think they're going to try and acquire picks and try and hit the draft and try and get in there if they can. So, although 40 to 50, you look at 55, that's probably about his money. It's a big risk because there isn't much to go on with Joe. This could be one of them cases where Collingwood are happy to leave, and that's a steak knife deal. The 40 to 50, that's always a steak knife. You know what the AFL are like, where we don't get player for player trades, we don't get pick for pick trades. It's always steak knives, and for some reason that 50 always breaks open a trade. So sad for Collingwood to let him go, but a player that I think Port will be able to learn off Willie Rioli, try and get that second crack. Port are a real interesting case because obviously they've got a list that's good enough for nearly finals. They definitely need some PODs, and it's going to be interesting with the rumours that we're going to talk about a bit later with them. Players wanting to leave there. They could be in a little bit of strife. Matty Owies is a really interesting case. So far, we've seen Essendon, Collingwood, and North Melbourne. I think there'll be some more. Obviously, Matty Owies has been kicking goals for fun for Carlton, and this is an interesting one because I know it divides Carlton fans, and you know what? When you do this game and you look at it, it's amazing how often teams overrate their own talent. But he's definitely going to be around that 30-ish because when you look, 1.4 goals a game, it's been good. The numbers are very top-heavy as if he's a third forward, but he's 179. You are getting in AFL establishment. I don't think he's going to get any better. If Carlton can push a 30 out of this, that allows them to get into the top 20 and in a more picks in front of Ben Camporelli, which I think is priority number 1. I would say Dan Houston is priority number 2. I think they want to see if they can get there first, and then probably if they can't, Dan Houston just rings that little true and they'll go with some speculative picks later. Makes sense though, Matty Owies, because I think he suits all three of these teams who have got established X-Factor forwards, and that's my issue with Carlton. I said this at the start of the year. People came at me. If Matty Owies is your best forward, you're borderline 8, you're definitely not top 4. That's not a knock on him. It's just that small forwards create goals out of nothing. It's one argument to say he's in the right place at the right time, but you look at the top small forwards, they create chains, they create spread because of their ability to kick, and unfortunately Matty Owies doesn't have that skill. If you've got players that can do that, which Collingwood have a plethora of, it makes sense. They've tried to find that third little option in there. Ash Johnson, it hasn't worked. They got rid of Ollie Henry. They like to play small. This guy would probably suit their system. If Carlton can get a pick in the 30s for this, they can bundle some picks up and try and hit the draft, or maybe fall back from 11 into 220s and use a future first on one of them for Houston. That's going to be a real interesting watch this space. But Matty Owies is one that I do think will leave the Blues. Whether the Blues fans like that, it's got to happen. Matt Kennedy's a really interesting one now. We've got him linked loosely here with the Eagles, Collingwood, North and St Kilda. All 4 of these sides are looking for inside midfield help. It is important, as we discussed in our video, this isn't Carlton getting rid of him. This is a player trying to further his opportunities. And it's obvious to me that Carlton have said, look, we want a third option up forward. We think that's you. You want to be an inside midfielder, which is what you are. We're going to try and look at facilitating that for you. And I reckon because of that, you probably will get a pick in the 25s to the early 30s. And it's a risk-free deal. Like Geelong, North Melbourne, Eagles, this is instantly getting your midfield sorted. We know St Kilda are always looking for that Jack Steele help. Collingwood definitely could utilise this type of player as well. Essendon, if they hadn't brought Kennedy and brought Setterfield, I'd imagine they'd be hot into it as well. But I think this is going to be one that's definitely going to be, as teams go after their talent, everyone's linked with the same types of midfielders at the minute. This is one that's going to hot up, and this is one that I'm going to really watch this space. If Carlton can turn this into maybe a future or something that they can use today, I reckon it'll happen, and they'll definitely have a decent asking price. This won't be a Will Setterfield, Zach Fisher type deal. So this is definitely one that I'm looking for, and you're getting a really established footballer who can play today. Lewis Young, a lot of teams looking for a key, and we've tried to link him with that. North Melbourne have jettisoned half of their key forwards. They're still looking for that. I reckon it's a sensible deal for them. Collingwood, I reckon Eagles for the depth down there and to protect some of their younger boys, and Sydney are always looking for it. This is going to be another one of them cases where Carlton have got to be able to turn this into a pick where they can get a key defender in for me. And there's probably some options out there with, players that, like Laverdy and players like that. I'm not a huge fan of the Lachyjack rumours just because you've seen him play a handful of games and you're instantly taking a punt. For me, I think Carlton's backline is set and you're looking for a Mitch McGovern replacement. But there is Kemp there is Cowan, who is an interceptor in his native junior year. So definitely someone that could turn into that third, I think. And if you get Dan Houston, it would make sense to convert him into that full-time now. Lewis Young, I'm a big fan of. I think he's solid. You look at the success Sam Frost has had at Hawthorn, which is really important to note. Sydney are also linked with Sam Frost as well. I think Lewis Young would probably be a younger replacement there. Just do the job. So if Carlton can get a pick in the late 30s for him and Matty O is suddenly there, you're in the purview of the 20s. And that's where Carlton wants to be in the draft. So this is going to be a really interesting one, and I'll watch this space. I think it's unlikely that Carlton will get that value with the way the market is, but they'll be trying to go for it. Elliot Himberg, often linked with a move away from Adelaide. It's always GWS, but Gold Coast appear front-runner favourites, and all they're going to have to do is pay his salary. It makes sense for Gold Coast to get that depth in. He's kind of an untapped talent, isn't he, Elliot Himberg? We don't know quite what he's going to be and how he's going to be. And he's definitely going to be one of them players that it's a speculative pick, but it could be one of them picks that, you know, it pays you back in abundance. 26 years old now, playing forward. He has played some games down in Sandfield down the back as well. It gives them some ruck depth. It's probably an improvement like on Sam Day and stuff like that, and one for the future. So definitely one to watch this space, but it'll be an easy deal, and this will be one of them ones that's done very, very quickly. Up next, Liam Baker, and I've put the asterisks here because I still think this is overpriced in my humble opinion. People are saying pick 9. It's definitely going to be pick. If it is a pick 9 or a pick 10, it's going to be something coming back for sure. But Fremantle and the Eagles heavily linked with him. It's still between these two. He's toured both training grounds recently. This is going to be a really fascinating watch for me because this is a lot of money for someone who I think is very good. But again, see what I always say. I'm not a fan of playing first rounders for halfback flankers when the AFL is littered with them. He is a very good footballer though, and he's definitely a point of difference that really allows Fremantle and the Eagles, their transition game, to go up another level because he's an incredible good footballer and a line breaker from transition. Definitely one that's going to really, I think, start the ball moving, the domino effect of the draft. He's definitely one of the dominoes that will be waiting for fall. Now, James Peatling is one that really excites me, and I am surprised that more teams are in for him. I love a little bit of James Peatling. He's strong, he's smart, he's got good mobility, he can play inside and outside, he can break lines, and he's played 19 games this year. Definite tackle beast, and you can see the teams that are linked with him. It makes sense. This is like really, like for Collingwood, this is like having Taylor Adams 10 years ago. So I understand Melbourne, Collingwood, St Kilda, the Dogs particularly, and Eagles looking at this guy. There's some value here as well from him as well, I think, because there's so much scope with his age for him to get better, and that's going to be something that's really appealing. This has got a real Elijah Hollands sense about it for me, someone who's going to really improve and really be exciting early doors. Definitely one that's going to be exciting and one that can be done. Dan Houston, big contract, so it's definitely going to be an early first with something else. They want to first. It's probably going to be a first and a second rounder. Carlton are definitely going to be looking at that future for this one and then trying to get some picks in around that 11 to be able to jettison 11 for maybe a 20 and a 21. Remember the old rule, while you've got it, that is the asking price. Carlton have come a cropper with pick 8 and pick 6 for Cherrett and Saad before. You've got to trade it. Once it's out of there, it's not on the selection table. So this is going to be one that I'm really going to be looking at. North Melbourne, probably the front runners with their Arsenal. Collingwood have got to do a lot of moving. But with the trade that comes in for the Dogs, this could be an interesting one as well. The Dogs are a last-minute runner for this one as well. Incredible talent. All Australian, elite kick. For me, for Carlton to do it, they've got to cover elsewhere. So if Carlton can bring in a couple of picks in their 20s, I'm all happy for it. For me, this is all or nothing. You are in a flag now for the Blues, and I'm really against buying ready-made talent constantly and not developing it yourself. So this is going to be a really interesting one because North, obviously, he makes them better. He really suits the Clarkson game style. The transition issue up at Collingwood since Nick Dacos has gone ahead of the ball definitely is an issue. Carlton, back half, it would really make their back half instantly better. It's going to be one of them ones that we're going to have to wait and see on this one, but it's going to come at a high value, and this is going to be one that needs the dominoes to fall elsewhere. Harry Perryman, unrestricted free agent. Collingwood, Hawks, and Port. And if Hawks manage to get Harry Perryman, I'm probably going to start complaining big style because their rebuild is just grabbing heat. And you are getting a guy here that I don't think he's world class per se, but he's incredibly solid. Whether it's down at halfback, whether it's out wide on the wing, he's got everything you want. And these are the names. Obviously, Adelaide have been linked with him as well. But these are the names here that you can really understand why these are the front runners. It looks like Isaac Cummings going to go to Adelaide, but Perryman would be a really interesting one. Cost nothing. Collingwood would definitely be after this guy because it allows them to work something. And is that Josh Dacos at halfback, which they've trialled? Get this guy there, gives them a spread, and look at it. It's going to be a really interesting one because this is another Moneyball signing. Harry Perryman's played a hell of a lot of games, 129 games, 25 years old. He's got it all. The ceiling there is strong. Jack Lacocious is really interesting because people are saying this is a salary cap dump, so that price could come right down. And Port and Adelaide are linked to him. I'm not a huge advocate of Adelaide maybe spending a lot on this, but if they can get him for a second, this makes total sense for them with the players that they're getting in. It really does excite me in a way that when you look at what they're trying to build, this could be a phenomenal acquisition for Adelaide. It gives them that extra pick, extra depth. It's a real strong type list that Adelaide are building. They're ones to watch next year. I'm sure Jack Lacocious would rather go there than Port because Port still had... This is that kind of signing that turns you into another club. I think Lacocious has been horrifically used up at Gold Coast. One of the sexiest kicks of a football I've seen Lacocious, particularly if you're playing him that forward line. Both sides could really utilise him, and it does pose to be an interesting one. I think Lacocious will definitely leave, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Rory Atkins is a real fascinating one, because this is going to be one of them cheap deals, and what that cheap deal does, it just brings you that experience. He's played a hell of a lot of games, he's been in and around the system, and it's one of them ones that where you're going to be using a pick that you're probably not going to be using if you are one of the bottom four sides, because you've only got so many list spaces. But a real type talent here, a real culture building talent, a real model professional. Northern Eagles, you ain't going to get a player of this ilk in them 40s. It gives you depth now. It gives you a chance to protect them kids. I think this has got a high likelihood of going, and that's going to be interesting. Jacob Konstanty is one player that I'm really fascinated about in this type of scenario. Everyone's looking for a small, and you'll see he's got the similar value as Mr. Matty, but this guy here is a real exciting prospect, I think, for any AFL type. Pick 20, he's had a real solid year, and this is like Matt Owies 176 defensive pressure forward. But one thing we've seen in his year in the VFL is he started to add that goal kicking, incredible work rate, incredible football IQ. It's going to be interesting because Sydney are usually good to deal with, so I think that'll be the bottom end of 35. But this could be a fascinating acquisition for the Dogs. Have been linked with him. Blues, I think, will have some interest just with what they're maybe losing. Real interesting one here because Konstanty's behind a few there, but his VFL form has shown that he can add that attack, and he has got that nous and that footy IQ. And working with Zach Williams, who seems to have taken it with a duck to water, could be really interesting and adding a little bit of competition. One that I really want you to look out for this year. Really look out for it. And we finish with Shai Bolton, another guy that has been linked for an early first. And again, I think this will be something coming back. But this makes sense. This is a je ne sais quoi type deal. And he definitely will be, I think, a Fremantle player. And Fremantle are definitely looking for that type of player. I'm really excited about this one because I think this will, again, this and Baker will open up that type of excitement and that noise. These are definitely domino deals. So Shai Bolton is definitely one of them that we're looking at. But that is your trade recap for the week. Let me know what you think, guys and girls. A few of your teams mentioned in here. Who are you looking for? And a question for you in the comments. Who do you think hasn't been linked with a trade that potentially could do? Peace, love and light. I'll see you next week. Pom out.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh